All right, so today we're going to dive into something pretty interesting. This proposed constitutional amendment
Yeah.
that's making the rounds. And, you sent me this clip from the Ring of Fire on YouTube about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it seemed pretty wild. So why don't you walk us through what we're looking at here?
Sure. So this is Representative Andy Ogles of Tennessee,
Okay.
and he's introducing what's being called the SLC Constitutional Amendment.
SLC.
And the big idea, well, the core of it, as they're discussing in this clip,
Okay.
is to sort of create a pathway for Donald Trump to potentially serve a third term.
Whoa. Okay. So a third term for a president, that's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, it's definitely a significant change.
Huge.
And the thing that really caught our attention, both you and me and the commentator on the Ring of Fire, was just how quickly this all happened.
Yeah. I mean, they pointed out that President Trump was sworn in on Monday, January 20th.
Right.
And by Thursday, January 23rd, this amendment was already being put forth. That's a pretty rapid response.
It is. And I think that's part of what makes this so fascinating. It kind of signals this clear intention right from the get-go to explore extending term limits for presidents, but really in a specific context here.
Yeah, it definitely feels targeted, right? Like when you see that timing, you got to think there's a strong desire to see a third Trump term from some folks.
I think that's a fair reading of the situation.
Okay, so for everyone listening, the big questions are, what exactly does this amendment propose,
Right.
and what are the chances of it actually happening?
Yeah. How feasible is this whole thing?
Exactly.
So, the source material we're looking at really underscores the challenges here.
Okay.
To amend the Constitution, it's a really, really big lift.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a 2/3 vote in both the House and the Senate.
2/3.
2/3.
Yeah.
You need a supermajority.
Mm.
And just thinking about the current political divisions we have,
It's hard to imagine everyone agreeing on something this big,
it's a high bar.
especially something that directly impacts presidential power like this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the fact that it seems to be geared towards one specific individual makes it even tougher.
You're talking about Trump?
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of the elephant in the room here, isn't it?
Definitely. So let's say hypothetically it does somehow get through the House and the Senate.
Hypothetically.
What happens then?
Well, then it goes to the states.
Okay.
And you need 3/4 of the states to ratify it. That's 38 out of 50 states.
38 states.
And considering how different states lean politically.
Yeah, you've got some very red states, some very blue states, and then a lot in between.
Right. And you can bet there's going to be pushback in a lot of those states.
So this source we're looking at, the Ring of Fire, they're pretty skeptical about this whole thing working out.
Yeah, they don't seem to think it has very good odds.
Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so the process itself seems like a huge uphill battle.
Uphill for sure.
But let's get into the specifics of the amendment itself. What exactly is being proposed here that could actually allow a third term for someone like Trump?
Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. Yeah. The proposed amendment, according to the Ring of Fire folks, has this one key detail. It says that a president can serve more than 2 terms only if those first 2 terms were non-consecutive.
Non-consecutive, so they couldn't be back-to-back.
Exactly. And that's the really crucial part that basically makes this whole thing about Donald Trump.
So the fact that Trump served 1 term, wasn't in office for a bit,
Right.
and then could potentially serve again, that makes his terms non-consecutive.
Precisely. And the source really emphasizes this point, that Donald Trump right now is the only living former president who's been in that situation.
Interesting. So someone like Clinton, Bush, or Obama, they wouldn't be eligible even if this amendment passed.
Nope. They all served 2 consecutive terms.
It's a pretty specific carve-out, isn't it?
It is. And, the Ring of Fire doesn't shy away from suggesting that this is basically designed for one person.
And that person would be
Donald Trump.
Okay, so, I mean, we're just looking at the facts here, but the way this is worded, it really does seem to uniquely benefit Trump and no one else.
That's the practical outcome.
Yeah. And the Ring of Fire, they make it pretty clear that they don't think Democrats would be on board with this.
Highly unlikely.
All right, so let's do a quick recap. We've got this proposed constitutional amendment, the SLC constitutional amendment.
Right.
Probably named after Representative Ogles, who's sponsoring it.
Seems likely.
And it's being introduced very early on in this potential new term with the goal of allowing a third presidential term, but only if the first 2 were non-consecutive. And right now, that condition really only applies to one person, Donald Trump.
You got it.
And to make it happen, you'd need supermajorities in Congress, and then you'd need 38 states to ratify it, which our source, the Ring of Fire, views as highly unlikely.
That's the gist of it.
Yeah.
That's a lot of hurdles.
It's a lot. So, I mean, Thinking about all this, the sheer complexity of amending the Constitution and then the very specific way this proposal is worded, it really makes you think, doesn't it?
It does.
What does this tell us about the current state of politics and the different ideas people have about presidential power in the U.S. today?
It's a question worth pondering.
It really is. Well, thanks for taking this deep dive with us.
My pleasure.
And for everyone listening, keep those questions in mind, and we'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.